It is extremely important for our training that we work our weakest areas, and that oftentimes includes working the things that we are not comfortable with, that we don't enjoy doing. And I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And what people need to realize is this doesn't matter whether you're chasing physique, whether you're chasing performance, whether you're just trying to stay injury free. Muscle imbalances and having legitimate weak areas and areas that overpower others is not good for any of these purposes. The obvious one is aesthetically. If you want to look good, you should probably have a pretty proportionate body, right? You should have a proportionate body. Your chest and back and arms should all be in relative proportions to each other. Now, easier said than done. In the case of someone like me who did years and years of powerlifting, there's a lot of rebalancing that has to be fixed. But you don't want those to develop aesthetically because you're just not going to look as good. A person looks better if they're in proportion to a reasonable extent. I'm not saying that people need to have bodybuilder perfect levels of proportions and symmetry, but just in general, you are probably going to look. You're going to look better if you're proportionate, right? And that includes upper versus lower body, arms and legs. All of these things, right? It's just a good idea. And I don't care if you're a man or a woman. And granted, I understand there's different viewpoints on all of that. And people do need to consider that, how they do want to look. But just keep in mind, as a general rule, you're probably going to look better with good proportions. All right, when it comes to performance and it comes to injuries, it's an even more important deal. Because having weak links absolutely predisposes you to injuries. And I don't just mean in the weight room, I'm talking out doing other stuff. Think about field athletes. Think about ACL tears and all these things. How many people are aware that knee injuries and ACL tears and everything go down significantly if you have extremely well developed and strong hamstrings? Okay? A muscle that a lot of people don't always think about. It's an afterthought, because how often do you see your hamstrings in the mirror? Okay? Not very often. Not very often. Now for me, because of strength sports, I've had to really overdevelop mine previously for powerlifting. For me to get my deadlift up over 600 pounds, up into my 40s, I had to do a ton of hamstring work, and I've still maintained a lot of hamstring because of that. But a lot of people are not thinking about that, and that is a perfect example of injuries. So if you think about field sports, you think about running, jumping, sprinting, anything where you pivot, weak hamstrings, that is absolutely going to potentially increase your risk of injuries. And having that good muscle balance, that good posterior to anterior balance in that muscle, man, it could save you a lot of pain down the road, particularly if you're going to be fit and athletic and do stuff. Because, people don't get hurt as often in the weight room as they think they do. They really don't. You're way more likely to get hurt doing other athletic activities, running, jumping. But even then, think about when you fall and land. How often does twisting a knee or something end up causing an injury? Sometimes an injury that lasts for life. How much of that could be staved off if you have really strong hamstrings and then proportionately strong quads? Your knee joint is so much more stable. But again, particularly people have that tendency to get too quad dominant, have weak hamstrings, injuries happen. Same thing on a deadlift. How often has lack of hamstring work caused hamstring pulls and tears on a heavy deadlift? Let's say you're going to power lift. Let's not even discuss the fact that, we know your glutes and back and everything can really drive a massive deadlift. Big quads can help you drive it off the floor, but weak hamstrings, they are a primary mover. And when they're too weak and we get shifted into the wrong position, they tear, they pull. And when I had a period of time, I pulled a hamstring major on camera. I want to say, was it 2014 or so? And I put up, I think, 2014, 2015. I hadn't been doing any real hamstring work outside of deadlifts. I quit doing all the good mornings and other stuff. And I pulled a hamstring, my leg kind of turned black, and I put a photo up, and I was able to deadlift again within a couple of weeks because it wasn't that bad, but I still had that pull. But since I started incorporating a lot of hamstring work, which then got me to where I am today, not only did my deadlift go up, but I never had another hamstring pull. Okay? I've never had another hamstring pull or injury since then, just because I've developed that muscle. All right? How about, your shoulder girdle? How about having weak rear delts? Right? Having weak upper back, does that cause more problems on the bench press? You bet. In fact, it can even impact your ability to desirably control the bar path on the eccentric to touch that bar where you want it when it gets real heavy. Okay? That strong upper back gives you a support structure, almost like a cradle for your shoulder girdle. And it also lets you put that bar more easily. When you get a really heavy weight that's close to a max or a max, you can set that bar more correctly where you want it by doing that. Okay? It's going to give you better eccentric control, so better touch point control, so you can get to that optimal spot to where you can lift the most weight with the lowest risk of hurting your shoulders and things, because you have control of that bar. That upper back matters for that. Those stabilizers are important, and that's what we need to think about. People talk about, well, we're going to develop stabilizers. Big exercises don't develop the stabilizers. Okay? The primary movers and stuff work, but the stabilizer muscles, that's a misconception that they're going to get bigger. Examples, anyone ever gotten really big biceps by doing dumbbell bench pressing? No. The biceps are an incredibly important stabilizer. Do you see where I'm going? You know, you're going to do curls and chin-ups for biceps. So stabilizers, building all of your stabilizer muscles is going to make you more stable on those big exercises. Okay? So yeah, a big bench, you might want really strong rear delts and upper back and biceps. They'll help you stabilize the bench. But what does that mean in the real world when we're talking about other stuff? Well, if you have weak stabilizers on different sides of muscles, guess what? You don't have the best stability. What does that mean for injuries? You can get hurt running, jumping, pushing, doing all these other things. So having a well-developed musculature means you're going to lower your injury rate. And then people don't understand. Oftentimes when we have exercises that we really suck at, it's not, I don't think if it's a normal, unusual exercise. Some exercises just suck. But it's something that shouldn't, and you suck at it. You don't like it. You're like, oh, I hate this exercise. But it's probably addressing one of your weak links. So that's why we don't like it, because we're not good at it. Because it also brings out our weak links. We can't even, it feels like it even sucks trying to stabilize it or something. Can't get the bar path right when it's a normal exercise. An incline bench right there, perfect example, a back squat. Right? You have to work those areas. And that's usually a sign that you've got a glaring weakness, and then people ignore that. They don't want to train it. They'll go do something they want to do instead. And they just create further imbalance. Okay? Sometimes this includes doing the things that we suck at or that we really dislike doing, because the end result is better muscle balance. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.